Settle in, dim the lights, and let the noise of the modern world fade away. We are about to travel back in time, to a world lit only by fire and moonlight, a world that approached the mysteries of the night in ways that are now long forgotten. Tonight, we explore how our medieval ancestors truly slept. The two sleeps of a forgotten world. Before the hum of electricity, before the endless blue glow of screens, and long before the idea of a perfect 8 hours of sleep became a modern obsession, the people of the Middle Ages approached the night with a rhythm that would seem strange to us now. It was a natural cycle, guided by the setting of the sun and the rising of the moon, known as segmented sleep. Imagine, if you will, a small village as dusk settles. The day's labor is done. The sun has bled its last colors across the horizon, and a deep, quiet darkness falls over the land. Families would gather for a simple meal, and then not long after sundown, they would retire for the night, drifting into what they called their first sleep. This was not a sleep meant to last until morning. It was a deep rest that would carry them for about 4 hours. Then, somewhere in the deep middle of the night, a gentle, natural waking would occur. This was not considered insomnia. It was not a cause for anxiety. It was simply the watch, a quiet and sacred interlude, a pause in the great darkness. In this hour or two of wakefulness, the world was still. A person might rise to tend the embers of the fire, coaxing a soft glow back to life to ward off the chill. They might sit in quiet contemplation, whispering prayers or reflecting on the day. Some would read by the faint light of a candle, their thoughts turning to holy texts. For others, it was a practical time to check on livestock. The soft stirring of a goat or a cow in the nearby shed a comforting sound in the silent world. Medieval physicians and marriage manuals even noted that this quiet hour was the ideal time for intimacy, when the body was rested and the mind was calm. It was a period of peace and productivity, a secret chapter of the night that we have since lost. After this interlude, they would return to their beds for their second sleep, which would last until the first light of dawn. This rhythm was the natural tide of the night for everyone, from the humble farmer to the learned monk. It wasn't a failure to sleep through the night. It was simply the schedule everyone was on. A bed of straw and dreams. Now let us speak of the beds themselves, or what passed for them. Today we dream of memory foam and cooling gels. In medieval Europe, a bed was often just a collection of organic matter, a humble shield against the cold, hard earth. For the common peasant, the bed was a straw mattress known as a pallet. This was, quite literally, a sack of rough fabric stuffed with straw or hay. If a sack was a luxury you could not afford, then it was simply a pile of straw on the floor, perhaps slightly damp and very likely already claimed by the family cat. These beds were not comfortable in our sense of the word, but they were a world away from the alternative, which was nothing at all. Straw was cheap, plentiful, and a good insulator. It was also, unfortunately, a welcoming home for insects, lice, and the occasional field mouse, making sleep an exercise in cautious stillness. If a family had a little more to their name, they might raise this straw pallet onto a simple wooden frame. This did not dramatically change the experience, but it did slightly reduce the chances of waking up with a beetle in your ear. Linens were a rare treat, and pajamas were not yet a concept. Most people simply slept in the same clothes they wore all day, for warmth was more important than comfort. Personal space was another forgotten luxury. Whole families, parents, children, perhaps a grandparent, all slept together in the same space, often on the same pile of straw, their shared body heat a vital defense against the night's chill. Nobles, of course, had what we would recognize as proper beds. They were large, ornate wooden frames with mattresses stuffed with soft feathers, covered in embroidered sheets. Canopies with heavy curtains hung from above, not just for decoration, but to keep out the drafts and hopefully the lice. These beds were so valuable, they were often the most prized possession in a household, passed down from one generation to the next in a last will and testament. But for most, a bed was not a place of comfort. It was simply a place to not freeze. It's the humble nightcap. In these drafty castles and humble cottages, the cold was a constant, creeping enemy. Stone walls held the chill, and thatched roofs did little to keep the wind at bay. Central heating, as we know it, was a concept centuries away. The closest thing was often the family dog. To combat the cold, especially since so much body heat escapes through the head, medieval people adopted the humble nightcap. This was not a drink, but a real, tangible hat. These soft caps, often long and pointed, were usually made from wool or linen, any scrap of warmth that could be spared. For men, it was a practical necessity. For women, it often doubled as a head wrap, serving the dual purpose of maintaining modesty and keeping their hair covered. The nightcap was a small but vital comfort, a soft shield against the biting cold that whistled through the cracks in the walls, a silent guardian of warmth in the long, dark night. A bed for strangers. The idea of sleeping next to a stranger might seem alarming to us, but in medieval Europe, it was often the norm. Imagine you are a traveler, a pilgrim on a long journey, or a merchant moving between towns. You arrive at an inn, a rare luxury in itself, and ask for a place to sleep. You would not be given a private room. You would be given a spot in a bed very likely already occupied. Inns operated like communal bunkhouses. Privacy was not an expectation. If a large bed had space, you were sharing it, usually with complete strangers who might snore, talk in their sleep, or simply have a different standard of hygiene. This wasn't considered rude, it was an efficient use of a scarce resource. Beds could host 2, 3, or even 4 travelers. In some inns, men and women were separated, but not always. To protect their few valuables, travelers would often sleep with their purse tied to their belt or hidden deep within their clothes. They might even sleep on top of their bundles, turning their luggage into both a pillow and a primitive alarm system. If someone tried to move your bag, you would wake. While it sounds like a nightmare to us now, at the time, it was a welcome upgrade from sleeping outdoors with the wolves and the rain. The rich, of course, traveled with their own servants and demanded their own chambers. But for the common traveler, sharing a bed was just another part of the journey. Prayers against the dark. Going to bed in the medieval world wasn't just about closing your eyes. It was a spiritual operation, a nightly preparation for the possibility that you might not wake up. People didn't just sleep, they prepared to potentially meet their maker. Forget calming podcasts or lavender spray. The medieval sleep routine ended with prayers, confessions, and a cleansing of the soul. The thinking was simple. Death could come at any moment, from illness, fire, or the simple fact of living in a dangerous world. So you had better say your prayers. A common bedtime prayer, which we now think of as a nursery rhyme, was a deadly serious plea. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Adults had a whole catalogue of prayers for different threats. One for protection from demons who might be hiding in the rafters, one for plague prevention, and prayers to specific saints known for watching over sleepers. After the final prayer service of the day, known as Compline, monks and the very devout would take a vow of silence until morning. Prayer before sleep was less about finding peace and more about last-minute damage control. a final, whispered shield against the uncertainties of the dark. The landscape of dreams and companions of the night. In our world, we often dismiss dreams as random noise. But in the medieval world, the veil between waking and sleeping was considered thin. Dreams were taken very seriously. They were not just dreams, they were messages from God, from saints, or from the devil. A dream of fire might be a warning of hell. A dream of water could mean purification. People believed the soul was active while the body slept, and so dreams were a landscape to be navigated with care. And in that landscape, they were rarely alone. Sharing a bed with an animal wasn't a quirky personal choice, it was often a heating strategy. In peasant homes, it was not unusual for humans and livestock to sleep in the same room. Chickens might wander freely, a large dog would curl up at your feet, and a pig might snort softly beside the hearth. This wasn't just about affection, it was about survival. Animals generated precious body heat. A large dog could keep your toes from freezing. A cow in the corner might raise the room temperature by a single, miraculous degree. Of course, the less welcome companions of the night were the pests. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs were an accepted part of life. Hygiene was a different concept, and straw-filled mattresses were the perfect environment for these tiny, persistent creatures. People used strong-smelling herbs like wormwood to repel them, and sleeping fully clothed was as much about pest defense as it was about warmth. The discipline of sleep. For the monks in a monastery, sleep was something else entirely. It was a discipline. Dozens of monks would sleep in a single large room, a dormitory where comfort was seen as a spiritual weakness. Beds were often little more than wooden planks with a thin straw mattress. They slept fully clothed in their robes, not for modesty, but so they would be ready for prayers at 2 a.m. There were no pillows, no privacy, and absolutely no talking. Silence was the rule. The night was broken by the solemn tolling of a bell, calling them to matins, the first prayer service of the day, held in the darkest, coldest part of the night. It was a sacrifice of comfort, a dedication of the quietest hours to God. Some, both in and out of the monasteries, even chose to sleep sitting up, propped against large bolsters and pillows. They believed lying flat was too close to the posture of the dead and could confuse the angel of death. It was a world of different beliefs, different fears, and different comforts. So tonight, as you lie in your own bed in your quiet, private room, enjoy the silence. Enjoy the warmth. Appreciate the profound luxury of an uninterrupted night and a soft pillow. Think of those who came before, who found their rest amidst the cold, the noise, the prayers, and the shared warmth of other living beings. They slept through chaos, a testament to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. And now, with the peace they could only dream of, you too can drift off to sleep.